Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with me, your host Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. As I'm recording this today, it's actually Easter Sunday, so I'm going to wish everybody a happy Easter. I hope you all get chocolatey wasted and you have a great celebration with yourselves and family and whatever it is you're doing for Easter. I hope you have a fantastic day. Before I get into today's topic, I've just got to do all the boring stuff. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to keep up to date on everything and anything that I am doing, talking about, playing, watching, and all that jazz. And also, if you listen to this on YouTube, or if you're not listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and all that jazz. Just go onto YouTube and type in the Nerdstalgic podcast, and you'll find me there. Today's topic, today's movie that I'm going to be talking about is the 2022 shadow dropped Disney movie, Strange Worlds. Now, to be honest, when I say Strange Worlds, or when you saw that the thumbnail for this video, or when I started announcing it on Twitter, you're probably all thinking, what's Strange Worlds? What's this? I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard of this before. And you'd be fair to say that, because nobody's heard about this movie, because this movie was shadow dropped by Disney. It was hardly marketed. It was hardly advertised. It was literally, we've got this new movie coming out end of the year, and then that was it. And then about a week or two before the movie was dropped on Disney Plus, it was like, oh, here's a new trailer, and then that's it. But I'll get onto that in a minute. But the reason I'm watching it, not just for the shadow drop, and it was also the fact of, again, it's like Morbius. It's pure curiosity. You know what I mean? Like, what was so bad, or even so strange, or weird, or whatever it is? What was about this movie where Disney had so little faith in it, where they hardly marketed it, they hardly put anything into it apart from, maybe, I think there was a trailer during the summer of last year, and then there was like a little trailer near to the end, and then that was it. A lot of people didn't even know this movie's coming out. I've spoke to friends about this film who even, friends that are not big into movies and friends that are really big into films, and either of them have hardly heard about it, right? So you've got a good selection of people who've never heard about this movie, didn't even know it was coming out, didn't even know it was out. Had heard about it, but didn't even know it was out yet, thought it was going to be announced until next year, right? Then you've got people who are still sort of like, are surprised that, I wanted to talk about a movie that nobody's heard about. So there's a lot of questions in the air, and I'm one of those people of like, well, what was it about this film that got Disney so sort of, I don't know, is scared the right word? You know what I mean? So it's pure curiosity, for me, just to see what's so bad, or so what is it about this film that made Disney want a shadow drop. And that takes me on to my next point, and I've spoke about this in other episodes before. And this is one of the things that annoys me about Disney. I love them. Disney is an institution for a lot of us. I grew up on Disney. I still have the videotapes in the loft of all the Disney classics whenever they would release a Disney film out of the vault. And they'd like put, this brand new sort of new edition of Peter Pan now on video. And it looks better than, it never did, and all this. And I've spoke about the Disney Vault before, where they've like re-released sort of old cartoons and old shows, and they put them out on DVD. And it's something that Disney does. They do it very smartly, but that's why, they're one of the biggest companies in the world, and why they've lasted so long. But one of the things that annoys me about Disney as of late, and it's ever since they've done Disney Plus, and they did it with Turning Red, they did it with the other Pixar movie, Soul. Now I get it. It was over lockdown. No cinemas were open, so Soul makes sense, and even like Luca somewhat makes sense. But even when Luca came out, and even Turning Red, we was all going back to the cinema. We was all going back out into the world. But still, they released those movies. All Pixar movies have, so far been released on Disney Plus. I think the newest Pixar movie, Elemental, I think it's called, um, or basically the movie about elements. So it looks really, really cool. The trailer looks fantastic for it. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. I think that one's coming out in cinemas. Um, but Disney did it a lot, where they were just dropping all of their sort of newer animated shows and movies on Disney Plus, sometimes with little advertisement. You know what I mean? And if I was I said it when I did review Turning Red. If you haven't listened to the episode, go back. It's season 1. It's a fantastic episode. But that'd annoy me if I was working for Pixar. I put all this work into it. I put this effort into it. If I was a writer, creator, designer, I'd put all this effort into making something that generally is actually a really, really good film and is very well done, and it speaks to a lot of people. It speaks to a whole demographic of viewers and people that have never really been sort of spoken about before in their history and their culture. It did a fantastic job, and it also speaks to women and what it's like to grow up to be a young lady and go through that pressure of that. Granted, it was a fantastic film. But again, it was one of those films that it could have done so much better and would have been so well received more if you put it out in cinema. But they didn't. And Disney have been known to do this in the past. They did this for John Carpenter, John Carpenter's Earth, which the movie was actually just called John Carter. But that movie is a fantastic film. Highly underrated. Hardly anybody went to go see it because they hardly advertised it. There was no advertising about it. If you haven't seen John Carter of Mars, or as Disney calls it, just John Carter, if you haven't seen it, you need to go see it. It's a fantastic movie with Taylor Kitsch. Highly recommend it. And I'll probably end up reviewing that movie soon because it's a fantastic film. But Disney have done this many times in the past, and it annoys me because there are a lot of great films, and there's a lot of, because at the end of the day, this is why whenever I review a film or review a TV show or a video game, I try, even if I didn't like it, I try not to be harsh, because I don't believe that anybody goes into making something with the actual pure motive of making it shit. You know what I mean? No, I don't believe anybody goes in to make anything bad. Everybody goes in to make something good. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that go into making games, making movies, and making shows. It's all just down to certain things that make it bad. And when it comes to animation, as all you beans know, I'm a big lover of animation. The way I see animation as art. It's very sort of means a lot to me. And there's a lot that goes into these films, into the designers, into the 3D modelers, into the narrative, storytelling, music, sound, everything. There's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to animation. I just don't understand why Disney just has to do their studios dirty and be like, oh, you're making a new movie. It's only going to Disney Plus. So that means it's only going to be regulated to, one stream of people. And even though, don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people, most people that I know, which is, I don't want to, sort of kind of what word am I, brag or anything, but I do know a good amount of people, and admittedly, there are a lot of people that I know do have Disney Plus, but it doesn't matter how many people I know, I don't know everybody. There's a good demographic of people in this world who either don't have access to Disney Plus in their country, or don't have Disney Plus at all. Who are missing out on watching fantastic stories and events and moments in these films, either live action or animated, who don't have access to them, and will probably never see them because it will never get released in their country, and the only way they ever could see them if they could go to the cinema. What I mean? But if you're never going to release them in cinema, they never see them. And so I just don't understand this whole thing that Disney does, this whole shadow dropping, and it's gotten worse since Disney Plus. Now, I love Disney Plus. I use it a lot more than Netflix. You know what I mean? I literally went from Netflix and drifted away from that, and I went to Disney Plus, and I only really just use Disney Plus now. I'll admit it. I am a huge Disney fan, but I don't understand why they do it. It is annoying to me. And that goes back to what I was saying originally about this movie. It's the curiosity of because I wondered why, it made sense why they put Soul on Disney Plus, because that was the height of the pandemic. That made sense. Okay, I understand that. No cinemas, nowhere's open. Okay, But then you've got Luca, which was a fantastically beautiful film that almost brought a tear to my eye, right? That movie, when it came out, it could have been released into cinemas, but they never did. And I watched the movie, and it made no sense because this is a beautiful, wonderful film. This would have done so well watching this on the big screen. And I do believe if I watched this on the big screen, I probably would have cried. I would have bridged that gap, and it would have got me because I would have been in the atmosphere. I would have been in the zone, fully focused on this film. You know, um, and it was the same with Turning Red. I felt like this would have been a fantastic experience to go see on the cinema. They just didn't do it. You know, um, so it's pure curiosity for me. And I have a feeling, like I say, I haven't watched this yet, as I do with most most movie reviews that I'm doing as of late. I haven't seen the movie yet, so I can't comment if it's good or not. But from what I've seen from the trailer, what I remember when I first saw the trailer, when the teaser trailer was first announced, it was everything that I'd always wanted to see from Disney. It felt like old fashioned Disney. It felt like old school Disney, where they would just make adventure stories. It felt like old school DreamWorks when they would just make a movie that was completely out there, completely strange. You know what I mean? They didn't play it safe. So when I saw the trailer, it was like old-fashioned sort of 40s, 50s, sort of, hey, adventurer, we're going into the Amazon. Oh, there's terrible creatures in Amazon. You better stay safe. You always got to take a machete with you because you never know what danger's around the corner. Come on, adventurer, let's go. You know what I mean? Like very in the style of old sort of 30s, 40s, even 20s, infomercials that they used to play in cinemas for like adventurers and stuff like that, like Percy Fawcett who went to go see the Lost City of Z. That sort of like that vein of old-fashioned sort of storytelling and history. I love that sort of things. So when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is amazing, this is incredible. Then I saw the trailer and it looked gorgeous, it looked beautiful. The creatures and the worlds and the animation, it was like it just felt like peak Disney. It felt like peak, Pixar. It just felt incredible, and I was invested, already. Like I didn't have to sort of see loads of trailers. I just the teaser did it, and then the main trailer did it, and that was it. I didn't need to see any more. Well, Disney must have been reading my mind because they must have been, well, like Luke has seen the teaser, Luke's seen the first trailer. Let's not advertise it anymore because we don't need to because our demographic, Luke, has seen it. You know what I mean? I'm not an island. It's not just me. There's more people in this world. I was excited for this film, so I never forgot about it. But there's a lot of people who either saw the trailer, got excited, and forgot, as you would do, because life and other people have other things to do, and I don't, if I'm being honest. It's only until lately I've been that bit more busy than usual. That when I knew when it was getting announced and I was excited for it, and never got around to it sadly, because they were I think it was around, I think it came around. I think it was released. It was released in November, so yeah, the end of November, 23rd of November. So I was getting ready for my Narnia special in December, so I didn't have time to watch it, but I knew the movie was coming out. And it's got Dennis Quaid. I'm a huge Dennis Quaid fan. I love Dennis Quaid. He's an underrated actor. He's in this movie. Jake Gyllenhaal, he's in this movie. Lucy Liu is in it. You know what I mean? Like actors I grew up with. So I was just very sort of like excited. And then the movie came out and it flopped because nobody saw it because nobody knew it was out. It only made $73.6 million, which is a lot of money, but it isn't when you actually look into the fact of how much money actually goes into making animated films. There's a lot of money that goes into them. Lightyear, for example, Lightyear came out in cinemas, right? That was released in cinemas, and that movie made 226.4 million, right? Other example, all right, New Puss in Boots, that came out in cinemas. That movie is made 442.5 million US dollars and counting. That movie's still making money, right? So to say that, oh wait, it doesn't matter if it didn't go out in cinemas, it's still going to make its money. No, and there's a worrying that I'm going to watch this movie now and I'm going to love it, and I'm going to be upset because there might not be a sequel because this movie technically flopped. Doesn't matter if I watch it now and I review it and I love it and I tell you all you beans to watch it and all you beans go watch it. In Disney's eyes, it came out, it didn't make its money back, it flopped. Move on. You know what I mean? So that scares me now that I'm going to watch this movie and love it and be upset that I'm not going to I potentially won't get a sequel. You know what I mean? So that's something that's going to bother me. I've also just looking as well. Encanto, great movie, loved it. You know, we all know not to talk about Bruno. I think that movie came out in cinemas, and that had a budget of 120 to 150 million, and it made its money back. It made 256.8 million dollars. Had it's made its money back. So yeah, you know. Or actually, look at this. Look, Turning Red, a Pixar movie that was put onto streaming, weren't put out into cinemas. Okay, so that movie only made 20.1 million. You know what I mean? And Luca only made 49.8 million at the box office. Why? Because Disney, for some unknown reason, are only putting Pixar films onto streaming, but they're releasing their own films, right, into cinema. Yeah, but they're not marketing their own films. Well, they are. They market Encanto a bit. You know, I think the reason why Encanto succeeded so much was because of the music and because people TikTok and all that. Um, but that movie managed to succeed. But they're not, for some unknown reason, they're not marketing their own films. They're putting Pixar onto streaming, but they're releasing their own films into cinema. I remember I did a video last year. I did an episode where I was just talking about the Disney conspiracy, where it just seems strange how they're not releasing certain films and they're only releasing their own films. You know, and I don't know, it stinks. You know, it stinks of something. You know, Disney have bought up all these studios. They basically bought up Blue Sky Studios, and they bought, you know, they've got Pixar and they've got their own studio. It's that fact of, you know, oh, now there's a pandemic. Oh, well, we won't have any competition. We'll make all the money in animated. We ain't gonna worry about DreamWorks because we're Disney. So we're just gonna release our own stuff and make loads of money back, and then we're just gonna put your stuff out. And if it doesn't make money, oh, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? You Pixar, it's fine. Not all the time. So yeah, that's my little rant. I went on a bit longer than I wanted to. It's just something that really confuses me, and I don't understand. And it does stink of something rotten. And what Disney are doing. It's ever since Disney Plus. They've gotten worse since Disney Plus, and I feel like I'm taking crazy bills. Like I'm the only person who's noticed this. And I hope you beings listen to this are going to take note now and just keep. Like, you don't have to go on Twitter, and I'm not saying riot and all this kind of jazz. All I'm saying, right, is that keep an eye on everything that Disney release on Disney Plus now, right? Just keep an eye on it, especially the Pixar stuff. Well, in all fairness, I do feel like the new Pixar movie that not Enchanted, Elemental sort of film that they're doing. I think that's coming out in cinemas. Um, but just keep an eye on what Disney Plus do with what Disney do with Disney Plus and what they put on and what they announce and what they don't announce. Just keep an eye out because I tell you now, once your eyes are open to it, you will notice it a lot more, especially with their films, live action or animated. You will notice a lot of things that Disney do, which nobody talks about. Okay, so I do apologize for my TED talk on my Disney conspiracy and this whole shadow dropping thing. Um, but I am generally excited for this film. I want to see this movie um, do well. And even though I know it won't do well because it came out in November and it basically bombed, but I am looking forward to it. So the curiosity's there, the excitement's there. I can't wait to get into it. You beans are lucky enough to hear my thoughts and feelings like in a couple of seconds. I'm going to go off now and watch the movie. So wish me luck, and hopefully it is better than what Disney basically made it out to be. So for you beans, onto the review. For me, onto the movie. Right, so I've just finished watching Strange Worlds on Disney Plus, and honestly, I have no idea whatsoever Disney saw for them to think, you know what, this movie ain't going to do very well. I'm going to just shadow drop it on streaming, and I'm hardly going to put any money into marketing. I don't know what they were watching. I don't know what cut of the film they saw, but the version of the movie I just watched, which you can go out now and put Disney Plus on and watch, it's fantastic. It's perfect. I'm struggling now to think of anything bad or anything negative that I didn't like. And I'll get into specifics, as the review goes on. But my initial thoughts, straight away is that I like it. It's good. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It's like, again, it reminds me of when I watched John Carpenter, which was, again, I've spoke about it many times before, and I spoke about it in the introduction. That was a movie that was basically hardly any marketing. Well, it was did have marketing, but it was very badly marketed. And Disney just dropped it. And that movie, if you saw it, you know how good that movie is, how good it looks, and how interesting the story is. And I remember watching that for the first time and thinking, this is fantastic. This is great. I would love to see a sequel. And then later to learn the reason why we didn't get a sequel is because Disney basically didn't know what to do with it, allowed it to fail, didn't market it, and all this jazz. You know, and then I was very sort of taken aback because the movie that I saw was incredible, and it's that same feeling that I'm getting now is a fact of, again, this is my initial theory. I might change my mind later down the line or on numerous watching. But my first initial impression, straight out the cinema, straight out of watching the film, straight out of the experience, is that it's pretty good. I have no qualms with it at all. And I would easily say right now, without even going into detail, to go and watch it. To shut this review off and to get your kids, or if you're an avid animated movie lover as an adult, go watch it. You'll enjoy it. It's generally a good, fun time. I just don't understand why Disney thought the need was necessary for it to just not be marketed and shadow dropped, because I feel like if I watched this movie in the cinema, I would have been blown away. You know? So that's my initial thoughts. That's my initial sort of impressions. To really get into the nitty gritty of it, though, this movie is gorgeous. It's absolutely breathtaking. This film is. It's basically Disney showing off. Because at the beginning of this film, before the film actually starts, we have the classic Disney sort of introduction. And over the years, this introduction of Disney has really sort of changed. And since I was quite young, it went from the blue background, and you had the White Castle, then you had the would be Tinkerbell, or like just the bell that would go over the back of it. That's what I remember Disney was. That's what it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then they changed it, and then it's basically a cinematic sort of panoramic view leading up to the castle. You follow the river that goes into the sort of gates, and then you see the castle, you see the land. It's beautiful. Well, they've changed that now because Disney are now at their 100th anniversary, which is this year actually. So they've renewed it. They've put all a new spin on it. So instead of coming from the front of the castle, you actually start from the back of the castle and work your way around, and then you begin. Yeah, you work your way around, and then the camera pans and you see the front of the castle, right? And in the back, you've got the rock from Lion King is in the back, Mufasa's rock. There's loads of little Easter eggs I couldn't really notice. I wasn't paying much attention, but I'm sure if you freeze framed, there was loads of Easter eggs everywhere. But then it said Disney 100 years, and it was like, yeah, that got me in a good mood. And in hindsight is a beautiful thing, because it proved to me, like what I'm going to say in a minute with this film, is that you can really tell it was like, okay, we've got to basically do our best with this movie, even though this makes no sense considering what I said already, in terms of them shadow dropping it and whatever. But it feels like initially, again, I don't know if this is true. I'm literally just going off my theory here, so I might most likely will be wrong because I wasn't in the board when this movie was being written up and planned. But I will state that nobody just goes into any project to make a bad thing. Nobody goes into a video game or a movie or TV show to make a bad game, TV show, or movie, right? I always have a feeling that the initial plan, initial design was great, but it's the development which what makes or breaks a movie, a game, or a show, whatever. All right. And I'd like to think that when this movie first went in, it was like, okay, we're reaching the 100-year goal, right? We've got to make this movie gorgeous. It's got to be beautiful. It's got to be the best animation that we've done to date. It's got to be everything's got to be a freeze frame. It's got to be a photo. You could pause this movie at any junction or any scene, any moment, and it be a piece of art. It's got to be stylish. It's got to show people like this is Disney. This is what the next 100 years of Disney will be like. This would be our starting blocks. This is what we've done from day zero to day 100. Well, year 100, shall we say, right? This is where we've got to. This is where we've evolved to, right? And this should be the stepping stone of like, okay, so this is what we've done at 100 years. Let's see where we can go in the next 100 years. I'll be dead by then, but that's, that's my kind of thinking behind it, because this movie's gorgeous. Everything is beautiful. There are certain moments, certain scenes where things just look real. It took me back to when I first watched Toy Story 4 in the cinemas. I went to go see that, and I've spoken before in prior reviews on the show, but there's a moment in that movie where there's a cat, right? And they're in a dusty old sort of charity sort of antique store, and there's a cat that walks into the scene, just stretches in this ray of sunshine that's coming down from a skylight, right? And you can actually the cat looks realistic. It looks real, and then you got the dust particles going everywhere, and it just looks realistic. It looks photorealistic. It doesn't look animated at all. It looks generally like they just filmed a cat in the studio doing this. You know what I mean? And there are many moments where like this movie looks real, and yeah, it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. And as you beings know, I love artful movies. I love art. I haven't made it, I have been very clear about it. I haven't been very shy about it. That I love art. I love anything artistic. I love going to sort of art museums and just looking at art and paintings. Van Gogh is one of my favorite artists ever to live, right? I love artistic movies. Amelie being one of my favorite films ever. Trust me, I'm not going to go into an Amelie rant here. It's not the time. But I just love artists, beautiful, gorgeous movies. And if you can pull me in with the visuals, then everything else works in my eyes. Not always, but sometimes. And to move on with that as well, so they tried to make the best looking Disney movie that they could make, and I feel like, in me personally, my opinion, they achieved that. And then you have the music, which then just boosters the visuals. You've got the visual ecstasy, right? You've got the gorgeous vistas. What makes them better is that soundtrack, is that amazing harmonics, the orchestras, the different sort of instruments, the way that they tell the story without actually saying any words, the way they use music to really convey a sense of adventure, a sense of wonder, mystery, intrigue, just all out sort of Indiana Jones, like, let's go explore. You know what I mean? Bilbo Baggins, I'm going on an adventure. It really conveys the visual eye candy. It is bolstered by the actual gorgeous music that's in this film that really, again, bolsters what you are seeing. And it lets you sort of dive deep into that well of creative juices and lets you swim in it and close your eyes and really sort of pulls you in. And again, it's classic Disney. Disney has basically just gone, let's do what we've always done, but let's make it better. It just feels like classic Disney, and I'll elaborate that in a minute, because there's a whole different point I want to get into. So yeah, it just feels gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. It is gorgeous. It sounds gorgeous. It is just classic Disney all over in a modern spin, in a modern telling, which is just so everything that I've been looking for. I've been looking for Disney to do this, to go back to its roots, and it's finally done it. And I'm really glad, it's here at the 100 years, because that means that the next 100 years, if this is the starting block, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. Granted, I won't be here for those next 100 years, but I'll enjoy whatever it is I get to see before my time is up. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to it. As for the story, this story follows the Clade family as they a group of adventurers, and they try to save their village, their town, basically. Um, Trying to best. I don't want to spoil this movie, because I feel like I want as many people to have eyes on this as possible. I want as many people to watch it because as I said, a lot of people don't even know about it. I even spoke to a friend today that I was going to be watching this movie and reviewing it, and again, they went, "What? Who?" I had to sit there and explain to them the whole debacle about him not being marketed and all that. And they were like, "Oh my god, I didn't know that movie existed." So I don't want spoilers. I generally just want people to go out and watch this movie so Disney can see like you were wrong to let this movie flop. I just want people to spread the word and be like, "Look, this is generally a good film. More people should watch it." Even if we don't get a sequel, I just want Disney to know that this is a good film, and that they made the mistake. I want them to admit it, which they never will. But I don't know. I have some moral high ground that I just want to win. You know. But yeah, like the Clade family, they're adventurers, and that you have the youngest son, Searcher, who is basically brought up around his dad. His dad, Jaeger Clade, is the archetypal adventurer sort of guy. He will wrestle crocodiles. He saves the damsel in distress. He goes in through the deep, dark sort of jungles and finds all these like treasures and stuff like that. It's classic Indiana Jones, 1930s, 1920s style explorer of what the sort of archetype was for an explorer, not the true explorer. But whenever you watch the old movies, like The Mummy, kind of like O'Connell, that sort of thing, if you give you a visual representation, Brendan Fraser's character in that film. He's that very archetypal like adventurer. Ha, me. Oh, I'm gonna go strangle that crocodile. Ha ha. And then you have his son Searcher, who again it goes along with him on the adventures. Him and his dad, going off exploring. But basically, Searcher isn't an explorer. He's not his dad. His dad has this goal, really, to be the best explorer, to be the best, to be, the hero, really. And Searcher is kind of pulled on for the long ride, and he doesn't want to. And this kind of builds this whole dynamic between him and his father that it plays out really, really well. And it's done in a quite healthy way as well, a very modern way. Very much in older sort of films and older sort of animated movies, whenever there was an issue between a character and their father or a character and their mother, it was always done in such an unhealthy way where you just forgive and forget, and that the character and the mother or father archetype would never have to apologize. They would just be forgiven because they're my dad or they're my mom, and. So it's done in a very sort of healthy sort of way, and it deals with the problems that the dad's facing, the mental health problems and that sort of thing. It's done in a very healthy, modern way, and I like that. I'm glad because again, it's going to show the kids that are watching it that that's how you should deal with your problems, and that's how you deal with certain things. Don't sort of conceal, don't feel. To quote Frozen, you know what I mean. Express them, let it go, let it out. Again, quoting Frozen, but release. So I like that sort of thing. So as the story goes on, Searcher finds a bioelectrical sort of plant that gives unlimited energy, unlimited power to this little town. And his dad is very much the fact of, well, we've not, like, because they're on this adventure at the start of the movie to find a way to escape where they are, because their town is set in kind of like the Ice Age 2, best way to explain it. It's set inside of a giant bowl in a giant dish. They're surrounded by mountains, and the Clade family, they've been trying to find a way out of this bowl for long. They've been trying to go through the jungles. They've been trying to go through the mountains, and this is where Jaeger, Searcher's dad, has this really sort of need to kind of solve this mystery, to kind of complete this quest, really, because he's drummed it into himself that only he can do it, he has to do it, and he's dragged his son along with him. So when Searcher finds this plant and realizes this plant is full of energy, full of electricity, and this could change the life, and that maybe we should just accept that the life that we have is okay, and that this sort of new plant, this new electrical source, could change things and make things better for us while we're here. And that kind of solves again the dynamic between her and him and his dad, where his dad's like, no, I don't agree, our job, and it is to find what's on the other end of these mountains, to find life, to find a better life, to lead our people to this whatever's beyond these mountains. And it's not really their sort of mission, it's Jaeger's mission. And again, it's done in a very sort of helpful way, and they come back to it a lot throughout the story. And again, no spoilers, but it's really, again, it's really healthy how they deal with that. But what that means is that Jaeger's basically like, no, I'm going to carry on the mission, and he goes off and he gets lost, and they don't see him again for 25 years. And then Search has moved on. He is now a farmer. He now grows this electrical plant. He saved their world, that he saved their little town, and they've got electricity, and they've got unlimited electricity, and they've got flying cars and flying machines, and life is just better, right? The problem is, and this is where the movie starts getting going, this is where the adventure really starts to begin. It's a very quick sort of pace. It really gets into it. It sets the scene. It sets up the characters. It sets up, what the world is like now since Searcher found this new power source. And now we've got the power source. It's all great, all dandy, but it not for long. It doesn't last forever. The plants are dying, and we've got to figure out as to why. The only person who we feel like could save the day is Searcher. He's no longer an explorer, but he's like, I would do it. So he basically go off in search of what's wrong, really, like what has caused this power source that they sort of need and crave so much because it's changed their world. What's caused it to die? So that's when the adventure starts, and they go on the adventure, and loads of things happen, which I won't spoil because again, it's all eye candy. It's all lovely, and again, I want you to explore that for yourself. I want you to go on your own adventure and to find out what happens next for yourself. But that sets up the plot for the story. That gives them a reason to go exploring again, and then that brings in all sort of other things and other sort of story beats, and it all works fantastically. Just going through my notes. Right, there we were. This movie, so as they go on an adventure, as they go, exploring, it has a very, the Jules Verne fan in me eked, like I literally went like sort of moment. I really got excited because I'm a big fan of Jules Verne. I haven't read all his books, but I've read a good few of his books. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, fantastic book. The Mysterious Island, not great. Bit too long, way too much detail than really is needed. But the actual story itself and certain parts are pretty interesting. But most specifically for this story, it's very sort of in the vein, shall we say, of Journey to the Center of the Earth. It's very much in the vein of that, where the explorers find their way into the center of the Earth. And then on their adventures, they meet wonderful creatures, fanciful things. There are times when it reminded me of that. At times when it reminded me of Ice Age 3, Dawn of the Dinosaurs. That sort of visual aesthetic. There was giant fungi. There was weird-looking creatures. There was plant life. Everything was just nature incarnate. Everything was just growing. Everything worked basically in tandem with each other. Everything was connected. It reminds me of Avatar. It reminds me of Pandora. It reminds me of how that planet works, about Awa, and how all nature and all animals are connected. Even the Navi are connected. And as well, it reminded me of sort of other sort of Disney films as well. It reminds me of Atlantis. When they're exploring and how their flying machines look. Like, I'm not saying this movie ripped any of those ideas off, but you can tell that's where they took their inspiration from. It reminded me, like, again, major Lost City, the Atlantis, Lost City vibes, where they were going underground and they're exploring and they find this like utopia, and they find all this crazy, amazing life, and the little flying machines that they take with them remind me of the design and look of the Atlantean sort of flying machines and the sort of submarine and that they use to actually go under the water before it gets attacked by the giant sort of kraken monster. it all has it's all in that vein, but also it reminds me of Treasure Planet, of the adventure, of the exploration. All it was missing really was the rock sort of anthems, of like Jim's song, where I'm not going to sing it because after singing in um, the Pinocchio review I did, I felt like I embarrassed myself enough. But if you know Treasure Planet, you know what song I'm referring to. You know what I mean? It had that vein, it had that sort of essence, and this is what I mean. Like it feels to me like Disney or even the creators are who the writers were like, it's a it it's our 100-year anniversary soon, right? We have to make a movie that not just shows what we are, who we are as a studio, because this is Disney Animated Studios, right? This is their home bread and butter. This is the studio that made them who Disney are today, right? With the success of like Steamboat Willie and all their other sort of animated movies like Snow White and that sort of thing, like this is their home studio. This is their bread and butter, right? It just feels like it's our 100th anniversary soon. Let's make a movie incorporating all our greatest hits. So let's take from the fan favorites like Atlantis, like Treasure Planet, like Jules Verne, because they made the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Yes, they were live action, but they did those sort of movies. Let's take from our greatest hits. Let's take from Tarzan. Let's take from our adventure sort of movies, and let's just try to pay homage to that. Let's try to not recreate, like, let's not try to repeat it. Let's not try to copy it. Let's not try to sort of remake any of that. Let's just try to take those ideas, those concepts, the ways that we used to do it when classic Disney, the as a lot of people like to say, the renaissance of Disney, because what saved Disney was like literally the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, with the likes of Treasure Planet and Atlantis. Yes, those movies flopped, right? But they're remembered and loved so highly because they're good stories, because they're great adventures, because the the eye candy, everything about them just works. You know what I mean? So it just feels like the studio was like, let's take what works. Let's take from our past. Let's take our greatest hits and let's make a good adventure film. Let's just do that. And I think they succeeded at it. I really do. And it's silly to say, but I wish that this movie was made a few years ago when they were making license-based games. As you all know, I love license-based games. Got a whole series dedicated to them. I love any movie that's based on a license-based game because I feel like those are the type of games that are really sort of, yes, they're usually made within 6 months to a year. Yes, they are rushed, and yes, they're not always perfect, but you do get your classic gems. You do get some games that do something that would really surprise you, or try concepts that you never thought you'd be able to do within the time frame that they have. They're very adventurous, they're very creative. Yes, sometimes repetitive, but it's always interesting to see what a studio can do when given a short time frame, and even a short leash of anything. But this movie has the essence of actually being a good platformer. And I've never had this, right? But with going to college and going to university and studying game design, never once have I watched a movie or an animated movie for that fact, right? And sat there and went, that could be a good mechanic for a video game. If this was a video game, they could use that. They could do that for a video game. There's this one sort of character. There's this one blob. It's called Splat, right? It's just a blue sort of flubber sort of looking creature, right? Again, it reminded me of Morph from Treasure Planet. Okay, taking sort of inspiration from there. But there's this like blue blob, and at one stage it attaches itself to Searcher's son's back, and it's like a backpack, but he uses it to grab things, and he uses it to swing and stuff like that, right? Because it's like elastic, it's like flubber, it can stretch and it can, fight and that sort of thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, that'd be a good mechanic for a game. He could use this like creature to swing, from platform to platform. He could use it to attack, kind of like, um, you know, the Nightmare Before Christmas, Oogie's Revenge. If you ever played that on like the Xbox original or the PlayStation 2, he had like a slime sort of gauntlet that he wore, and that allowed Jack to fight and combat, Oogie Boogie's minions. You know, I'm being a bit quite nostalgic here again, hence the name, but that's something I've never experienced before in anything since actually learning game design, and this is the first time. And I had to smile. I had to write it down because it was a very unique feeling to me. Because I was like, I would love to play this as a game, And it took me back to being a kid because that was the feeling I got when I was younger. I would watch the likes of like Wall-E or Meet the Robinsons or Chicken Little. And I'd watch these movies, Jimmy Neutron, Ben 10, the list can go on. And I'd watch them and I'd go, I love this show. I love these characters. I want to play that. And then when I would go to Game or go to Choices or go to Blockbuster or Game Station or any of them that were close to me, and to find that there was a game based on one of these franchises or one of these movies or whatever that I've just seen, I was blown away. And that is, the reason why I loved them so much, is why I played so many when I was younger and why I'm now revisiting them as an adult for that nostalgia. Granted, they're not all great, but they mean a lot to me, and I love that sort of thing. And for a film to make me feel like that as a kid, especially an animated movie, wouldn't it be easy to say that it's actually won? It's worked. It's made me feel like I'd love to go out now as an adult, 25 years old, go down to my local game store and buy it and play it at 25. Granted, I know age is just a number when it comes to what you love, and that is games and animated movies, no matter if they're for kids or not. You know, that's made me just want to go out now and look for this game. Sadly, I know this game doesn't exist, but again, it makes me wish this movie came out a good few years ago because there would have been a game. I remember when I watched Wreck-It Ralph for the first time, and then you actually get to watch their racing game, that Vanellope Von Sweets, Sugar Rush, right? I still say to this day, and you can't see me, but I'm raising my hand in the air, right? I still say to this day that Disney, again, really missed out on the opportunity to make a Sugar Rush video game, a kart racing Wreck-It Ralph game based off Sugar Rush. They could have done it, and it would have made a lot of money, and I love kart races, right? That would have been a fantastic game to play, but they never did it. They didn't even do a mobile game of it, And this just tells me at times that sometimes Disney doesn't know what they're doing in terms of their animated programs, because they publicize some that are not very great, and then they don't publicize the ones that are great. Like again, Big Hero 6, incredible. Still haven't gotten a sequel. The closest we've got to that is the Baymax short story, sort of short mini series they released last year. But apart from that, we haven't got no Big Hero 6 2, Big Hero 7. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't got that yet. Don't know why. There was going to be a sequel to Treasure Planet, and they didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand, But again, I feel like this would make a fantastic game. Even if it was just a simple platformer, I would still happily play it because it just feels like it'd be fun. It'd be fun to do what these characters are doing. I'd love to join them. I'd love to, get off the settee and actually go into the screen and join them. And this is again, I hate to get all gushy about it, but this is just the power. I'm not on about the power of this movie, but that's just the power of animated film, and that's the power of movies. The whole point of cinema, which is I feel like something that we've lost, is that you should feel like you're involved. You should feel like you're part of the story. You should feel like you did when you was a kid, when you put a program on, whether it be live action or animated, and you felt involved. You felt integral to the story. You felt like genuinely you could get up and put your hand through the TV, kind of like the Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you could be part of the story. You could meet the characters, meet the heroes. And for me, I did do that by playing those games, by being part of that story, by playing those games. And I know I've been on a bit of a side rant here about license-based games, but that's the point I'm trying to make. Is it's made me feel this, and I haven't felt this in a very, very long time, if ever. And the closest thing, like I said, came to it is Wreck-It Ralph, and even then it wasn't for Wreck-It Ralph, it was for a game in the film, But even so, it's one of those where I just feel like it would have made a good game. Anyway, I need to move on because I'll be here all day if I talk about this one. There is a big twist at the end, and all I'm gonna say is Discworld. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Um, and if you know what Discworld is, then you will understand. And I'm not gonna go any further because I don't want to spoil anything. But it's got a big Discworld twist, and that's as far as I'm going on that one. Um, where else was what did I put in my notes? As again, like I said, no spoilers. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I want as many people to see this and experience it as possible. I want all eyes on this show, as many as possible. So that's my main goal. So no spoilers, but definitely Discworld. Keep that in mind when you watch this movie, because it will just change everything in a good way. Not change it and ruin it. Like, it will change it in a good way. How you see this film, how you experience it. And again, if I ever watch this for a second showing, knowing what I know now, it will change it, but it will change it in a more wonderful, wondrous manner. And I can't elaborate on that any further. I do apologise for getting anybody's hopes up. Let's go through my notes. To kind of almost come to the end and come to an overall thoughts, right? This is a great movie. I wouldn't say the best Disney movie ever made, because for me that is still on the heights of like Treasure Planet, Atlantis, Emperor's New Groove, that sort of thing, right? They're the heights of best Disney, right? And nothing has come close in terms of Disney to beat that, right? So it's a great movie, not the best Disney film ever, but it is a perfect action film. It is a perfect action adventure movie, animated or not. Granted, that's my opinion. And if you've seen this movie, you can disagree with me. If you haven't seen it, I still say go out, watch it, and make your own mind up. But in my opinion, it's a fantastic, great, perfect animated movie, and an adventure film. It does everything it needs to do. In an adventure movie, it tells a story, has interesting characters, it's gripping, it's interesting, it's visually beautiful, it's visually stunning. The mystery and the adventure is there, the characters are there, the story's there, the music's there, visuals there, everything is there. And like I said at the beginning, I can't find anything wrong with this film. Usually I can watch a film, play a game, read a book, watch a TV show, and be like, oh, I loved it. But with this movie, Strange Worlds, I watched it. It was pretty good. That's it. There's no but. Generally, I can't think of anything that I didn't like. There was nothing there that I felt like it was pushy. There was nothing there where I felt like it was, bad or done. There was nothing bad with the CGI, nothing bad with the music. If they didn't do it, sadly. It would have been nice if they copied this classic Disney trope, but I would have been here if they decided to do as a Phil Collins or Bryan Adams sort of solo, in this film, either, halfway through or as an adventure sort of thing. I would have been happy with that because, again, it's in the vein of classic sort of Disney. They didn't do it, sadly. It is all just harmonics. It's all just sort of orchestral sort of music, but that's fine. But yeah, there's nothing in it. There's no if, buts, or whens, or coulds. It is generally just a great adventure movie, and you should watch it. If you've got Disney Plus, watch it now. I think it's out on DVD as well. So you don't have Disney Plus, get it on DVD. Sit down with your kids, watch it, enjoy it. Even if you don't enjoy it, they will, because it is visually stimulating. It is visually pleasing. This whole film. I mean, even as an adult, watch it. Even if you ain't got kids, watch it and enjoy it for yourself, because I'm telling you now, you will. You will enjoy it. So, that's my overall thoughts, really. Is that it's a fantastic, perfect movie. It's not the best Disney film, but it doesn't need to be, because there are already great Disney movies out there. You're not watching it for it to be the best Disney movie. You're watching it because you want that escapism. You want that adventure. You want to feel like you are no longer in your in your bedroom or your living room. You want to be transported to this world, and it does that easily, perfectly. I was transported. I was transfixed the whole time. I was interested. There was intrigue. The characters were interesting, story was interesting. Everything about it was just fascinating. Everything had me on the edge of my seat. And then when that big twist happened at the very end, I eked more than I eked when I saw the Jules Verne connection. And I was just like, yeah, you've won. You've got me. I'm there. It's sold. That's it. Perfect. Done. The end. I could have turned the film off at that point and be like, I'm happy. I don't need to watch anymore because I'm done. I'm happy. But I kept watching and I just loved it even more. Do I think this movie will get a sequel? Honestly, I don't think it needs one. No, I think it works perfectly as a standalone film, right? Granted, if I'm being honest with myself, even though I say that, this movie won't have a sequel because of how Disney treated it. The only way this movie would get a sequel is if some magical miracle that this episode, just blew up and I had tens of millions of people just downloaded it and listened to it, right? And if so, hello. But let's be realistic, that's not going to happen. But let's just say, for example, that does happen, right? The only way for this movie to get a sequel and to actually do well is if this episode works, everybody goes out, tells their friends, they tell their friends, they tell their friends, and people go out and watch this movie, talk about it on Twitter, and just show Disney of like, look, this movie has now had a resurgence. It's now, it's got a cult following. People like it. People are enjoying it. At least, I don't know, either think about re-releasing it, maybe for like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of American holidays coming up soon. I can't think of any. Maybe, release it again in the summer. Being like, we're having a re-release of this movie, go out to cinemas, watch it, kind of like Sony did with Morbius, which again, we don't talk about that. But like, hopefully it's more successful. People go out and want to watch it in cinemas, want to re-experience this movie for the first time, or for a repeat viewing. And then hopefully Disney will go, okay, this movie's now got a cult following. A lot of people talking about it on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and all that jazz. We will entertain the idea of a sequel. Again, I don't feel like it needs one, and I'm happy if this movie only gets one film. But if this blows up and people are like, yeah, this film was treated badly, treated harshly, I'd like to see another one. Then I'm up for it. Because I like the characters and I find it interesting. I'll be honest, I don't know where they could go with it. Again, I feel like with the twist and with how the movie ends, I don't feel like there's anything more that they could do with this world and these characters, and I feel like it just works as it is, as a standalone sort of adventure sort of movie. But who knows? I could get lucky and this could blow up and be my first million. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it will get a sequel. Would I want one? No. But does that mean it's a bad film? Not at all. Like I said, I can't talk about this movie any highly than I already have. Generally, it is worth watching. So to wrap it up, to get to the point, of my overall thoughts, generally, whole honestly, again, it's my opinion, but give it a watch. If you've got Disney Plus, give it a go. That's all I can say. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And I feel like, my audience will too. You know what I mean? And this is probably the first time any of you have heard about this movie at all. Which, again, as I said, I completely understand. And I get it. And I won't rehash any of that stuff because I've already done it enough. But generally, I feel this will be a nice surprise for people. It'll be a genuine nice surprise and a nice experience for yourself, for your family. So that's all I can say. But that's all I can do to end this off nicely, is just to say, if you have Disney Plus and you haven't watched it yet, watch it and just spread the word. Let your friends and family know who have kids, who don't have kids, people you think that will like it. Like, retweet, share this and all that jazz, and just get it out there, get it known, to people. Because this movie is one worth watching, one worth experiencing, definitely. And it pains me to know that it's being forgotten, and that's not right. That's not fair. So yeah, so that's my thoughts and feelings on Strange Worlds by Disney Animated Studios. Yeah, so I'm going to go to the end now and wrap it up nicely. Hope you liked it. Hope you liked the review. And I'll catch you in the end. So here we are at the end. Hope you all liked the review. Again, I'm still amazed that this movie is as good as it is, and Disney had zero faith in it. I don't understand it. But what I will do now, after I finish this little section, which won't be too long, I promise, I'll go and watch some YouTube reviews just to see what people thought, because I don't tend to do that. Like, I try my best if I'm going to watch a film. And I know I'm going to review it. I try to stay away from other people's reviews because I don't really want their views and their feelings, whether it be positive or not. I don't want their thoughts and feelings to kind of sort of converge with my own. I like to be them completely 100% my own thoughts and feelings, and that way I can best can convey them organically and honestly to you all, instead of them being mixed up with other people's opinions. So I'm going to go off and I'm going to listen to other people's opinions, because I want to see if there's other people who feel the way I do about this film. You know, other people I can talk to, just to see, like, did they love it? Did they hate it? Did they find things that I didn't find that were bad? You know, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But before I get on to doing that, I just want to say, thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking to the end. I know that most people don't, to be honest. I've seen the data. I know most people don't. So if you're one of the few that do, again, thank you. Where is my sheet of paper? I had a sheet of paper. There it is. So yeah, so let me know what you thought of this film. Let me thought of this review. You can let me know on YouTube, or you can let me know on Twitter. Or any sort of feedback really will be fantastic. I'd be greatly appreciative of it. But remember, you can find me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod. Again, you can send me sort of feedback there. You can also find this podcast on Spotify, which is actually most of my listeners are from Spotify. So if you are from Spotify, hello, thank you. But if you're not listening on Spotify, you can listen on Spotify if you wish. Also, Anchor, which is now actually Spotify Podcasts. They've changed their name, so I'm going to have to change that one from Anchor to Spotify Podcasts. Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, also on Audible. You can also find me, as I said, on YouTube. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to give me a like, comment, and subscribe. As always, I'll do a pinned comment. Basically, it will most likely be something under the lines of any sort of thoughts, feelings, feedback, and all that jazz. Anything that you feel, just sort of go on to that, reply to it, and then we can start a bit of a dialogue. Just to kind of get you going, because I know some people kind of struggle to figure out how to start and where to start. So I feel like if I start you off by just asking you a question, they can answer that question with a one-word answer, or a paragraph, or an whole essay. Whatever you feel you want to do, all feedback is welcome, whether positive or negative. And yeah, also, if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to give me a star rating. I think currently I'm at 19 ratings, and I'm at a 4.8 percentage, which is pretty good, all things considered, from doing this, in season 2 now, and it's still rated quite high. So, thank you very, very much. But basically what that allows is that if you click on that little thing and you rate my podcast from 1 to 5 stars, what that'll do, that'll basically tell the Spotify algorithm that this podcast is really popular, that people like it, people are interested, and that the higher the rating and the more people that rate, the higher that I will go up on this sort of digital list of podcasters, and they'll be advertised more to new people that come in who want to discover new podcasts, and stuff like that, really. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would do me a solid and rate my podcast from 1 to 5 stars, whatever you feel like is fair, really. 5 stars, best thing you heard in your life, till 1 star, it's complete drivel. I have no idea what I'm talking about. Whatever you feel like is fair, honestly, no judgment, just choose from there. It's greatly appreciated, genuinely. And yeah, so that is everything. I'm now going to go off and watch some YouTube videos, hopefully to find some common kin, some common tribesmen out there, to see if anybody else liked this movie as much as I did, or maybe I'm just off my head and all the reviews I'm going to watch, they might all be negative. We will see. We will see. But that's the beauty of this medium, is that everybody's got their own voice, everybody's got their own opinion, and what one person likes, one other person doesn't like. I have no love whatsoever for Marmite, but I know people that love Marmite. You know what I mean? So tomato, tomato. It is what it is. You know, there's always somebody on one side of the coin. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Whatever you're doing, whether it be day or night, evening, morning, afternoon, whatever. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, or you have a fantastic sleep, or whatever. I have been Luke, your host. Thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.